everyone, this is Stan, your Polish-Taiwan YouTuber. Hope you're all having a great day. Today let's talk about more events related to CCP's vaccine diplomacy and how China is trying to influence Taiwan. Recently, Taiwan and the United States relaunched their Trade and Investment Framework Agreement talks, or TIFA. TIFA, just like a character from Final Fantasy VII. And being my favorite FF7 character, hope TIFA will help Taiwan. And Taiwan will probably have as many fans of this TIFA as of Final Fantasy's one. Well, let's go back to the topic. How TIFA is related to Chinese vaccine diplomacy? Well, the CCP virus pandemic lasted for more than a year already. And the US was not only tired of the CCP's shameless wolf warrior diplomacy, but also realized how ambitious the communist regime is in spreading its influence, and how they even want to replace the US as the world power. Even if we take a wider view of this pandemic and the changes that are related to international politics, their vaccine diplomacy is just like their Belt and Road Initiative, or Steel and Rob Initiative, just for extra low cost. And it also is a war declared by the CCP against the world democracies. Their key goal is to compete with the United States for the world influence, especially in the developing nations. And secondary goal, of course, is territorial expansion. Of course, we can see the United Front attack against Taiwan. Well, CCP's attempt to block Taiwan's access to vaccines only accelerated the US and Taiwan's TIFA talks. Topics as medical equipment and drugs are going to be discussed, as well as vaccines. So the exchanges between the US and Taiwan are going to be smoother. I don't know what kind of feeling might my Taiwanese friends have. In the past year, the CCP and their supporters have launched a very aggressive United Front attack against Taiwan. They tried to damage the trust of Taiwanese in their government. Not letting Taiwanese get in their vaccines is only one side of China's attack. I think the whole way they're dividing Taiwan is comparable with their attack against Taiwan that happened in 1996, during the third Taiwan Strait crisis. As the pandemic prevention strategy was very successful in 2020, Taiwan gained more attention and more voices of support internationally. But the CCP's regime only increased their attacks on Taiwan. For example, this February, Taiwan wanted to set up representative offices with Guyana in South America. But when the CCP got this information, they sent 20,000 vaccines to Guyana, and therefore Guyana decided to cancel the opening of the representative office. There is a related report in Liberty Times. Even Paraguay, Taiwan's only South American diplomatic ally, they had a major coronavirus outbreak in April. Thousands of people were diagnosed every day. People were not happy with government's policies and took on the streets. And the CCP, as they always do, told Paraguay that they will provide them with the vaccines if they break the official diplomatic relationships with Taiwan. Yes, they demanded Paraguay to end diplomatic relationships with Taiwan. However, the president of Paraguay gave a statement on April 20th that Paraguay won't accept any form of extortion. We're open to direct negotiations with Chinese manufacturers, but diplomatic relations are not a condition at the negotiation table. In addition, Honduras and Haiti were also targeted by China's vaccine diplomacy. As a result, the United States had to come forward to coordinate and even criticize the behavior of the CCP. US's ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, she gave her response on June 16th at Foreign Affairs Committee hearing and raised warnings in regards to China's vaccine diplomacy. In fact, you have to know that these countries are not only experiencing problems with vaccination. The epidemic also caused huge economic losses in developing nations. So the CCP will probably keep on acting the same way in the future. And therefore, the Taiwanese government will face even more challenges. The same also applies to the US government. In addition, the CCP is not only targeting Taiwan. Its key goal is to replace the United States as the world power, as the world's largest power. So the CCP is also trying to influence the other countries like Mongolia, Seychelles and Bahrain with their vaccine diplomacy, exchanging the lives of the people for their political interests. However, as China's vaccines are not as effective as they're supposed to be, countries in Europe and America have more room to provide the world with the necessary vaccines and balance the Chinese influence. However, as many countries still need a lot of vaccines, and by the end of this year there'll still be a need of billions of vaccines, the international situation is also changing rapidly. So we can see that the CCP's vaccines are same as their regime. They lie to you at first and then show you their middle finger. It seems that the CCP and the other countries will never reach a win-win result. Of course, for the countries with strong economic power, the temptation is not as strong. But for the developing nations, the financial pressure and the pressure coming from the government, as well as pressure of public opinion, are strong, and these might lead to compromises with the CCP's regime. Well, I always emphasized, while discussing CCP, we should also not forget about Russia's role. And we shouldn't oversimplify the relationships between Russia and China, and even thoughts of Putin, for example. China is acting stupidly often. Of course, they want to increase their influence in Central Asia with their vaccines, even as the Central Asian countries are being considered by Russia as their sphere of influence. If we look at China's One Belt One Road, it didn't improve the image of the CCP in the eyes of the Central Asian countries. And of course, they also don't believe in Chinese vaccines. Therefore, the public opinion in Central Asia is not favorable to China at all. So many of those countries would prefer a Russian vaccine, like Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. In addition, the conflict between China and India eased last year. But the points on which the countries don't agree only deepened. So it seems like there is only Iran who is willing to buy Chinese vaccines. Countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan prefer vaccine donations from India. The reason for that is not only that they don't believe in the CCP's vaccines, but also India's policies of giving priority to neighbors. Therefore, I think that the United States and Japan have also observed the seriousness of the problem created by the CCP. Even if China is acting as a vulgar criminal, they are still reaching their goals, at least at their lowest limit. And they will always be trying to influence Taiwan. As Japan and Taiwan are countries with close relationships and countries that influence each other closely, Japan has been providing Taiwan with all the necessary support. Being endorsed by the US government, they also agreed to support Taiwan publicly. Japan's Deputy Defense Minister, Nakayama Yasuhide, told during a seminar, Transformation of Japan's Security Strategy, that happened at the Hudson Institute think tank in Washington. He said on June 28th, China's aggression in all areas is increasing day by day, and we must wake up. At the same time, he also mentioned, a democratic country like Taiwan is not only Japan's ally, it also is Japan's brother, a family member. However, China's military threat to Taiwan became increasingly fierce, including constant war games close to Taiwan. So he re-emphasized the decision of current Japan's defense minister, Kishinobu. Japan will no longer limit its defense spending to less than 1% of GDP and will determine the level of defense spending based on the security threats. What's even more exciting to the people of Taiwan is when he was asked if Japan will keep on following the so-called One China policy. Nakayama Yasuhide asked himself, is this the right thing? When talking about how will the future generations judge the current policymakers, how will they judge them on this issue? He said, I don't know. It's a very meaningful saying and a very important one, meaning that Japan is starting to doubt the so-called One China policy, the unreasonable setting of this One China policy. They started doubting it. Therefore, even though I think that right now we can be too optimistic, but we also shouldn't give up. Speaking directly, looking at the current situation in Taiwan, Taiwanese have to keep up on working harder and use this opportunity when the world is feeling tired of the CCP. Try to improve connections with the countries all around the world. And that's not only the thing that Taiwanese government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to do. I also talked before about better laws and regulations for the new residents in Taiwan. Yes, Taiwan should take care of national security, but Taiwan still has to improve relationships with the other countries and make the new residents in Taiwan be willing to promote and support Taiwan and establish direct links between their home countries and Taiwan. Hope I'll have an opportunity to go deeper into this topic in the future. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe and share. This is Stan, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.